Hello. Hello. My name is Rob. This is a video about how to install Coldtype, which is a library I work on for display, typography, and animation. And the first thing you're going to want is a copy of a very recent Python. It doesn't have to be extremely recent. If you already have one, like a Python 3.7 or above, that's cool. There are a lot of different ways to install Python. This is the one I prefer. You go to python.org, you go to downloads, you go to whatever you have, and you hit that. It should only take a second or two, depending on your internet speed. Speed through this. That's going to pop up this window that just popped up. You probably want to double-click install certificates.command. That'll help you with some internet stuff. Close that out. Close this out. And now you should have here, well, you should restart your terminal window. Make sure it's gotten picked up. You should now have a Python 3.9, which you can verify just by typing Python 3.9, hitting enter. And then there it says Python 3.9.6. Now you can do Python here, or you can just get out of here and you can do Control D. I think you might have to type something like this on a PC, but I always hit Control D on a Mac. I will say this tutorial is kind of Mac oriented. I don't know, most of the people I've heard that want to try Coldtype are on a Mac or on Linux. This will be more Linux than Windows adjacent, since it's Mac. But anyway, clear. It's something I type compulsively. And now you want to, what I actually want to start with is you need a place to work. So when you open terminal, it drops you at the squiggly, the tilde, which is your home directory. I've created already a directory called tutorials, so I cd change directory into there. And then I want to make directory, mkdir, make dir. Let's call it installing Coldtype. Then cd into that. And now we can create a virtual environment, aka a venv. This is the incantation to have the specific Python version 3.9, which we do want to use. Make a venv, and we're going to call it venv. That's the second argument. I think that might be redundant, but we do want to type that so we can get prompt equals, and this can be anything you want. You know, anything you want. But we're going to call it installing CT. All right, now that that virtual environment exists, I'm going to get rid of this little weird animation back here. Lovely sound of my refrigerator turning on. Apologies. If you type ls, you can see that the venv is now here, and now you can say source venv. And if you can tab complete if you're not familiar with the terminal. You know, if you just type a V and you hit tab, it'll give you venv, and then type a B, it'll give you in. Type an AC, it'll give you activate. This is the magical incantation, the spell, to activate your virtual environment. You can see it's activated because it now says installing CT, which is that prompt that we defined before. So now you want to say, well, if you say Python now, it should say Python 3.9 to verify. If I deactivate the virtual environment and say Python version, it's going to say 2.7, which is like the, I think, still standard on Mac. Maybe not. Not really important. That's the whole point of this, using Python 3.9 like this. But say it again, source, venv, bin, activate. And now we can pip install Coldtype and then brackets viewer. Now, newer versions of the shell on Mac, I think you need to do this, so you might as well do it. It works on this version too. This will take just a second. Or a few seconds. First time you install anything, Coldtype related. It takes a little bit of time. It's doing some kind of, I don't really know what it's doing. Pre-compiling, caching, something like that. And now you should be able to say Coldtype demo like this. And again, this will take a second. The first time you do it, it should not take as long in the future. We are anticipating. Voila, there we go. I just hit the space bar. I went to this app and hit the space bar. You hit it again, it'll stop. To get out of here, you hit Q while this app is open, or you hit the thing that closes Windows, or you go back here and you hit Control C, which is the universal terminal speak for get me out of here. Kill this process. But you probably don't want to just run the demo. You probably want to do something. So you're going to need a text editor, basically for Coldtype. The idea is to use all kinds of different programs, Blender, Premiere, After Effects, in coordination with Coldtype. But all you really need is a text editor. I use a text editor called Visual Studio Code. I think it's pretty good. You can start it like that. Or you can start it with the code command, which doesn't come installed by default, I don't think, but is pretty easy to install. So now you can say code this. Dot meaning this. As you can see, there's nothing here. The cool thing, fun thing you can do in Visual Studio and a lot of text editors is say view terminal. And now you're back in a terminal. When you have a new terminal, you always want a source bin activate to make sure your terminal's working correctly. Make it a little bit bigger. And now you can say Coldtype, and you can pass in any path you want. So animations test.py. Animations is a folder, test.py is a file. Neither of these exist, but when you hit enter, it's going to say that does not exist. Do you want to make it exist? And it'll create the intermediate folders and then the file. And then this is some boilerplate. So if you go here and it's doing a little, whatever that is. Not super important what that is. And you can name this whatever you want. You could say R animation. We'll call it tutorial. And let's make it longer. And we can just save that and see what happens. Now you can see it's much longer. You can extend the range of what it's doing here. And you can change it. You can change anything. You can just leave it running and you can change it. You can go back here, you can stop it. You can hit home, and that'll reset it. I guess that's home. It was already on home. Let's make sure that works. Home. There you go. I just hit home. But this is probably not what we want to do. You're probably here because you want to do something with a font. I keep all my fonts in a directory called fonts, in another directory called fonts. It's actually a Git repo. That's a private repository where I keep fonts. Please don't sue me. And this is how it looks in the Finder. So there's no real magic here. I copy the name of the font file and I drop it in here. Make this a little thinner and get rid of the sidebar. Now it looks like Drawbot. Font, that's my font. And then we can get rid of all this nonsense. A stew, saint, stop, whatever you want to call it, styled string, shorthand. Hello, font, 100. And that's kind of the simplest possible thing. You might not even notice it here. It's really small. It's down there. You can make it bigger than that. You can start setting some variable properties of, obviously, this is a font by Ono Typeco, highly recommend. Extremely versatile. And you can start setting variable properties between 0 and 1. These are not the properties of the font itself. If you open up, obviously, in, I guess it's worth noting, this little rocket ship here is Coldtype, the program. It has no specific icon. Here we got obviously and font goggles. Get that out of the way. If you go to the variations, you can see these are not between 0 and 1. These are between 150 and 800, which I know there are reasons why these values exist. I find it a little hard to remember specifically for whatever font in the context of programming what these values should be. So I decided to just make it always 0 to 1. You can restart our viewer. This looks pretty silly at the bottom, so you say align FAR, and F is a universal idiom in Coldtype for frame. If you print the F, you get Coldtype.time.frame. F.I is the number of the frame, so if we go here and play this, you'll see these numbers screaming by. F.A.R is the rectangle of the animation. There's an implicit rect argument here, which is 1080, 1080. This is the default, so if I hit save, nothing happens. If I make it, I want to make it 4:3 aspect ratio, that's how you do that. 1920. You can tell I've used Premiere a lot for film editing. I like the square. Big fan of the square. Get rid of that. So that's all this is saying is take the vector that we've created here and align it to this rectangle. We can increase the weight, and we can make the slant, and now we can start variating in time. You don't actually have to put anything there. This will just do that. When you don't pass any arguments, the implicit arguments are these. This means, oh, that's not true. The implicit arguments are these. So this will be the same now. Just like that. Pretty fun. Not that fun though. We can make it cooler than that. So I just changed the 0 to a 1. That means loop one time. It was looping 0 times. I can change these values. Previously at EEIO is exponential ease in out, cubic ease in out. Exponential is kind of the most dramatic, most reminiscent of human motion. This is quadratic. Popular one for, you see a lot when people do make variable font animations, is sine ease in out. This is popular because people like using the sine function. A lot of the point of Coldtype in my mind is to never do any math, because I am terrible at it and it makes my brain slow down. But when you use little mnemonics like these, you don't have to do math. That's kind of the idea. And you can do all kinds of stuff here. Why don't we change the size of the actual font so we can actually see all of it. What is it? It's starting small. So we want to start with a large font size and then get smaller. Not small enough. There we go. So what I really enjoy is kind of combining different easing functions to get more interesting things happening. You can make these all exactly the same. That's pretty cool too. That's why it's the default. It's also cool to mess around with them. Anyway, you can add new lines here. great font. You can, you know, it's Python. You can do whatever you want. I think probably that's enough for this video. Pretty simple. Maybe one other thing you'd want to do right off the bat is fill. This is maybe kind of weird that F here means frame, F here means fill. Basically, if F is a variable, this is a variable, an object, I guess, then it's frame. If it's a method, a function, then it's fill. Fill is an alias available. That's the exact same thing. I guess we're not done yet. We can do this too. That'll add a little stroke. If you want it just to be stroked, you just do that. It introduces a fun little weirdness of variable fonts, is that they have these little overlaps pretty often. But you can get rid of that here. You can say RO equals 1. That means remove overlap. Now they're gone. You don't have to do that there. You can do that as a method. Or you can leave them if you're trying to be really. I'm sure that'll be a style in the future. Or you can just fill it and be done with it. You can make it white, and you're thinking, I can't see that. This is a fun thing to do because rather than render an actual black background into the image, this is still transparent. This is just a preview. When you say BG equals 0, you can say BG equals, HSL3. What would be rendered when you go over here and you hit A? You can see it being rendered out. These are just transparent frames. So if you then go Shift space here, actually can't tell because it's still rendering the green background. That's kind of a moot point, but if you then, if you command click this, it should, yeah, cool. So it's transparent. You see a green background here. The idea here is that you then bring it into Premiere or After Effects or whatever, and you don't want the background. You want to set the background using Premiere or After Effects. That's a very easy thing to do. It's not complicated, and you can make it whatever you want there. So often this is something I do because I'm usually, if I'm doing any kind of filmy motion graphic stuff, simple credits, it's usually white text on a black background. Anyway, that's probably good enough. We can now open what happened there, which I totally did not explain when I rendered the the animation. You go to the app and you hit the A key for, that means all, and it renders all. If you're feeling adventurous, you can hit the M key. That'll say multiplexing true. And then when you hit the A key again, it'll actually, if you scroll back here, it breaks all these into different little groups of random frames and then renders them on all the different cores of your machine. So I have a lot of, I don't even know if that's the accurate terminology. I have, I think, 8 cores on this iMac. So that really speeds it up. It renders it basically 8 times as fast, minus a little startup cost. But you don't need to do that. You can hit M, turn off multiplexing, and it'll just render, straight away. So these are rendering into a normalized location. This is the folder you created, animations. Then it automatically creates a folder called renders. We can see this here. VS Code will elide how these are displayed. This is another folder called test, another folder called tutorial. If we open this in the Finder, you can see that. You might be thinking, that seems like a lot of nonsense, and it's a little redundant. Yes, but there are reasons for doing it this way. You always know what it's going to come out as, and it's pretty unambiguous. And if you add another animation in here, which you can do, kind of the minimal. This is an animation that's literally empty. If you render that, it'll appear in another folder called tutorial 2 with another file structure where it's prefixed. We can see right now why you would want it to be prefixed. We can close this. We go to Premiere. We can make a new project. We can make a new project right here in Installing Coldtype. You can then go here and you hit a lot of different shortcuts, but you can say Import, Command-I, double-click, Tutorials, Installing Coldtype, Animations, Renders, Test, Tutorial, Tutorial. This will become the name of the thing that's imported, which is why you want that prefix, or else you're just getting all these zeros and ones. And you want to hit Options, Image Sequence. That's important. Import. Then you can just drag it onto this new thing. And that's it. It'll play, once. Congratulations. There's a loop button that might not show up. You might need to say loop here. Also, you don't need to use Premiere. This is just how I like to work. And now it'll loop in kind of the same fashion as the Coldtype viewer. And if this is interesting to you, the Premiere workflow, there are a lot of other little speed ups, like this weird little window that I should make look better. Not going to go over that now, but if you are interested in that, let me know. That'd be cool to do a video on this. It's a little hard to set up because Adobe extensions are pretty strange, but that's probably enough for now. Thanks for watching.